Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and love the previous episode with James Sasson as much as I did. Maybe you even bought the book if you're in my office. It's too late. It's a good book. You should read it. I'm just warning you, it's quite explicit. So get ready for it, but there's so much value in there. Today we've got the founder of UnleashingU. That's UnleashingU with the letter U, not Y-O-U. UnleashingU.com. She's a social worker, certified relationship coach, and leadership trainer. Thank you so much, Jenny Sasson, for being here.
I am so excited for this and for what we're going to talk about, because everyone who's been listening to this for at least a few episodes knows how much into being self-aware. And I think that it is literally the first thing before anything else. People talk about communication. People talk about accepting your partner. They talk about so many things. But if we don't understand where it's coming from, we don't understand ourselves, then nothing could happen from it. So let's just start right at that. How can we go and start becoming more self-aware?
Ooh, big question. Okay. So I always like to go from the inside out with everything that I do in my life, any decision that I make. So this would really have the same approach. Go to the inside first. A lot of times people make the mistake of going to the outside, of figuring themselves out, right? What do other people think of me? What do other people say about me? Which is fine, which is okay. But the problem is, if you don't know yourself well first, right, then it really doesn't matter what other people say, right? You're going to question that, right? That's why a lot of times people have self-doubt, like, are you sure? Do you really mean that? Or they crave it a lot because they don't fully know themselves, so they really need that from other people. So I say go to yourself first, but just so now to really answer your question, how do you do that? I think it's important that we really explore a few areas about ourselves. So we really want to know about what our qualities are, like who we are, kind of like, I like to call them like our ingredients. Like we all have different types of qualities. You know, some of us are caring, hardworking, more passionate, determined. Some of us have, a sense of humor. I think we all have all these things, but it's always about the combination of that. But you really want to go into that and really ask yourself who you are as a person, your characteristics, your qualities, what makes you you. I think another really important way of getting to know yourself is understanding what your values are and what you believe. So I really like to separate those two things out, and not just to talk about values, but also to go into each value and really explore what you believe about that value, right? Like, so you and I could value relationships, right? So we're sitting here, we're talking about relationships, right? Relationship with ourselves, relationships with others. But you might have your own beliefs about how relationships should be, right? And how and then even to get even more specific about what to do, like how you want to be in your relationship, right? Like what's important to you. It's going to be based on your values, but that comes back to what you believe about your values, and that really gives you even more insight into who you are, into really understanding yourself. So I would say that. And then the other thing I think it's really important to explore is our needs. What are your needs? Like your emotional needs, your psychological needs. So we all have, again, like different types of needs or different levels of specific needs. So those are I would say, the core areas that I think it's important to really explore and know about ourselves.
So there's our qualities, our values, and our needs.
Yeah.
What do you suggest people do to go and really understand it? Like talk it out with someone, journal. How could they get to it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there are different ways. So let's go back to qualities. Qualities is you could really take a look at the things that you've done in your life or the things you've accomplished. And it doesn't even need to be like an official kind of accomplishment. But let's say someone tells you you're a good friend, right? So like that's not enough information. That's really nice, but it's not enough information. So you really want to go deeper and ask yourself, well, what makes me a good friend, right? So I'm really caring, or I'm not judgmental. I really take the time to listen, and so all of these things, that's going to give you more information. Or let's say you ran a marathon. Well, look deeper and ask yourself, what does it say about who I am? What did it take? What qualities did I tap into to achieve that, to accomplish that? And then that's when you're going to kind of start really digging out those qualities about yourself. So that's a fun example.
Yeah. So it's like finding something that you've done and figuring out how you actually did it.
Yeah, like working backwards, kind of digging deeper and asking yourself the question, what does it say about me? Or what qualities am I tapping into to achieve that? And that's where you're going to get, your answer. That's where you're going to see the information there.
I love that. So that's for qualities, but what about for values?
So I've done this for myself in terms of values. You can ask you again. You could journal. It really depends. I really do believe that we all learn in different ways.
Yes.
Right. So some people, like, I really like to flush things out with like a good friend, right, or my husband or a good friend, because I realize things as I'm talking it through. Right. So that's conversation. Some of us are writers. I also do like to write in my journal. Right. Some of us like to go out and just, maybe it's through traveling, maybe it's through experiencing things, and you learn about yourself and then ask yourself those questions like, what do I think about that? What's my opinion on this particular thing? How do I, what's important to me? But even if you're in a specific, situation, what do I think about this? How do I think things should be? Right. Another great way to figure out values. I love this question when I'm talking to my clients, because sometimes people come to us like, oh no, I'm not really passionate about anything. I wouldn't say that there's any one particular thing that I care so deeply about. So I ask the question, and this is a great question that we could all ask ourselves, is, what gets you angry? Right. And then there's like a whole list of things. People are like, oh yeah, I get angry all the, So that's another, because the flip side of what you're getting angry about, right? Meaning that's the value. You care about something, right? You're getting angry that people are being inconsiderate. Well, you value being considerate, So that's like a kind of a roundabout fun way to, get to say like, oh, my anger, like the things I get angry about are really useful. So I can use this information to figure things out about myself.
Yeah, every situation, there's a way to look at it somewhere else and figure out and learn something else from it, as long as you're looking for it.
Right. And as long as it goes back to the intention, right? If you really view everything as like, here's information, I could use this information to learn about myself. What am I getting triggered about? Why am I getting triggered about this? Why is this bugging me so much, right? So if we're like, so you said, you really like you're a self-aware person and you're introspective. So we're going to use that information. Everything around us is information that we could learn from, and how we're interacting with that can teach us a lot about ourselves and other people if we're paying attention, Yeah.
And I think the same thing of what you just said for values will be also really useful for needs.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's really about paying attention. And I think it's really important to also have knowledge about the different needs. I really love using actually the 5 love languages as a tool for that. That's one of my, so I know people use it as a great tool, obviously, to connect to others and to build, enrich our relationships with other people. But I think it's an amazing tool also to learn about ourselves, right? So we'll take one of them, like words of affirmation. So that happens to be my primary love language, right? So that means I have a sensitivity to words, right? I'm going to be more wordy. I'm going to, I'm sensitive to criticism, right? So my need, right, is going to be, show me appreciation in words. I'm asking for feedback often. It's all coming from the same thing. So it's really great to have tools like this and resources. I think that gives us a lot of insight. If we know how to, which questions to ask ourselves and how to use that information, so we could learn a lot about ourselves through that.
Yeah. Do you, everything you read, everything you learn about, go and turn it on yourself and say, how can I learn more about myself?
All the time. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always about that. It's always about how does this apply to me? How does this apply to my relationships? How can I incorporate this information just to be better, do better? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. So once you have these 3 really clear for yourself,
yeah.
I'm assuming you're going to say that now we have to go and figure this out with your partner.
Yeah, well, and then it comes back to being a really great listener, right? And listening to them about, I guess, asking them those questions too. Starting with needs, I would even say, values you want to really do before. You really.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, what if you have conflicting values?
Right. And you can have, I really believe you can have conflicting values, but when it comes to the core values, you want to make sure those are really in sync. right? Because
Yeah.
then and I don't think it's impossible to be in a relationship with someone. I think it's just going to be really, really hard. And you just got to go in with your eyes wide open, knowing that, because when the core values, there's synergy there, things are just much smoother. And so you want to have that conversation before, and, kind of figure out what are your, what are your boundaries? What are you like, okay, I can't compromise on those values. Like there's no way. And then there's other values that are like, okay, if my partner has them, great. If not, I'm okay with it. Right. And then that's okay. But when it comes, I would start with needs, as a way of just how, like, it's such a great way to connect and to understand and to be sensitive. Right. So that's a great conversation, I think, to have, with our partner. And when it comes to qualities, that's just a great way to enrich our relationships. Like to really appreciate our partners, and our kids, whoever, when we're really looking for those, because we tend to look at the surface, right? We tend to look at and to kind of pick out, what are they doing? What are they not doing? Right. But if we look deeper and say like, why are they doing that? What's the reason? Oh, they have this quality. And when we see that quality, we're really able to appreciate that person more. And then that really, it really does, it really warms the heart. It's just a different experience. We're getting deeper as opposed to just looking what's on the surface.
Yeah. And I think that could go even deeper by mixing it in together with the values, because if, let's say, they're kind, what is their values about kind? And then you could even like bring in the needs of, if they're words of affirmation or if they're a gift or whatever, based on what their values and their needs and their qualities are.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning if they're kind so then you're going to want to go and compliment them based on their values, because you know that they value this. Then you're not just going to say, oh, I noticed that you were kind, but.
When you're saying that, it's true. It's a very powerful thing, because that really makes someone feel seen and heard and understood. Like, wow, you really get me. You really respect me. Like, I feel that. Because these are the things that make us who we are, our qualities, our values, our beliefs. And then someone's recognizing that and seeing that and appreciating that, that feels really, really good. Right. So it sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. It just takes a lot of consciousness to make sure you're actually going and do that. You first have to know what you're doing and then make sure you actually go and do it.
It's true. It takes a lot of commitment and consciousness and like being fully present with that and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Like making it part of our goals, right? Making it part of the goal of the day, like to really get present with that, to really be mindfulness. That's the word I was looking for. To really be mindful about it, because it's so easy to take it for granted, especially when we're in a good relationship, right? Especially then, it's just, but then when we do it, it's so nice. It's a very powerful experience, right? When we take that time to recognize that.
Yeah. Now, what happens if you completely disagree with your partner and you just don't understand why they're like that?
Like what? Meaning that's a very general thing. Like with respect to what? Can you give like a more?
Okay, so we spoke values.
Example?
We spoke about, so we spoke values before. We want to make sure the core ones are before. But
yes.
If they want to do something and you don't want to do it, or you just disagree, it could be even like where you're sending your kid to, what school you want to send them to, or financial decisions or things like that. How could you come to them from an understanding point of view while still having your point of view taken into consideration?
Yeah, so that's, I would say, it comes back to communication. And in general, when it comes to communication, one of the core principles is that people are open to hearing you when they themselves feel heard first, right? So the first thing we could do is, and I think what works is to really listen well, but listen to understand their point of view. And then once that happens, and I mean, really, not just like saying it, but just really getting into like kind of really taking yourself out of where you are and putting yourself where they are, right? And to really understand, like, oh, like, where's this coming from for them? Like, this really matters to them. There's a reason for this. What is it like to be them right now in that situation, right? In this thought, in this idea, in this opinion. And then, so once that happens, we could say something like, oh, I hear you're saying this and this, I'd like to share my point of view. And then we can go ahead and share
not but. I like that.
Exactly. And not but, because right, puts anything that comes after but becomes more, I guess, significant, right? We pay attention to that more, right? You're great, but you could really use some help with, right? So the whole great, that's off the table. So it's and then that really puts, everything on more equal ground. But then it comes back to really listening and then thinking about, I guess, coming to a compromise. Ideally, that's where we want to get to, right? Where everybody's giving something. Everybody's understanding.
Spoke a word that like everyone knows I don't like. I don't think that we would compromise, because then I'm not getting what I want and you're not getting what you want. We want to work something out together that will fit for both of us.
Okay. So then that's what I mean by that. It's true. When you repeated that word compromise, it does have this connotation of I'm compromising myself.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I totally hear you. And it really is about working out something that will work the best for the both of us. That's a much better way of saying it.
I like that a lot. Best for the both of us. It's like for the relationship and the situation and what's going on.
Right. And we're not gonna get there though until we really understand each other though. Right? Yes. So I believe that needs to happen first. Right? To say, oh, what's going on here? What's important for you? What's important for me? So let's see, what are we going to do about this now?
Yeah. And I think that if you know those three things that we spoke about earlier, really clear, then when you're trying to understand the other person, it might be easier to understand them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You get there quicker, right? Especially though, because even more than that though, it's not just because you know them, it's because it's easier to then respect them too. And so the conversation is just going to go better. Because if you really appreciate that person, for who he or she is, then that respect is there naturally. Just it's going to come from that. And then those conversations just go better. Those disagreements are just going to be better when we're coming from a place of respect for each other.
For sure. I don't think a relationship could get anywhere without respect. So the more respect there is, the more.
Exactly. No, that's the cornerstone. You really can't. You really can't. I've spoken to people who they really made an effort to want to be in that relationship, but that respect wasn't there. So when it's not there, that's just not fair to anybody. So either you build it, either you work on building that, or you let go.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
It's hard.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Now, how would you suggest someone support their partner in their partner's trying to achieve their goals?
Well, that really depends on what the best way is for that person to be supported. So I would say first figure that out. Ask your partner what that is. What's the best way? What do you need? What do you need what do you need from me? Right? Or what support do you require in order to achieve this? What can I do for you? Right? So that goes back to what we were talking about with the needs. And that's why it's so important to have that self-awareness, right? Because saying, I don't know, or saying you should just know is just not fair in a relationship, because that's it's controlling, right? Even without people realizing it, because it just puts the partner on edge, right? So the first thing is we need to take personal responsibility in knowing our needs. There's hints. There's definitely hints, but definitely have this conversation with your partner first. What do you need? And have them also, take some time to really think about that. And then once they know that, it just gets easier. So I would say it really depends on what their needs are. And then you want to support them from that place, right? So, and ask them what it is that they need. What do you need from me? Do you need to cheer you on? Do you want me to just sit here and quietly do nothing? Do you want me to be your accountability partner? It really depends on what's going to work for them. I don't think there's just one answer. It's
no, because we're each
individual.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Now on the flip side, you're going to want to go and make sure you tell your partner that same thing, right? Now, what happens if while you're doing it, you have a lot of self-doubt?
Okay. So what do you mean? Who has self-doubt?
I'm working on my goal and I have a lot of self-doubt, how can I go and overcome that?
Personally?
On a personal level. Yeah, let's bring it back
to
ourselves.
On a
personal level.
Now we're coming back. Got it. Okay. We're coming back to ourselves. Again, I really do believe that comes back to the qualities and really knowing who you are. Again, just to put this into context. Okay. So let's say, so you're working towards a goal, right? And then all that self-criticism comes up. So let's say, I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. I'm never going to make it, right? It's really vague because we're not talking about a specific situation, but in general, we tend to feel anxious when something's new, right? And that self-doubt comes up. So I find that it's very, very effective, again, to go from the inside out, right? So, for example, you might say, okay, I may not know, I've never done this before, right? And I don't really know what the outcome is going to be because I don't have control over that. I only have control over me, right? So I know, now I go back to my qualities. I know that I'm committed. I know that I'm hardworking. I know that I'm passionate. I know that and you just go into that. And it's because of that, right? That's what's in my control. Well, I can do that, right? So once we tap into those qualities again, that's why I feel like it's so significant to know this about ourselves because it's with us all the time. I like to say we're with ourselves 24/7. We don't need to wait to get that information from anybody else. It's all here, right? So a great way to actually keep that up to kind of do maintenance is to really remind ourselves of our qualities on a regular basis. If you're doing this for the first time, I would say make the list, right? Meaning do that work in terms of looking at, going deeper, figuring out what those qualities are, make a list, look at it every day, put it on the mirror. I have clients who put it on the mirror, right? And they're looking at it every day. And it gives them confidence. Why? Now, it's not coming from a superficial way. It's not like these affirmations. It's like, this is who I am. That's all I need to know because I now know how to show up in the world. And no matter what I do, right? Because that's what's in my control. I don't have control over what's going to happen, how people are going to, respond to the things that I'm putting out there or what I'm going to do. I don't have control over that, but I have control over me. So I know how to be me. And that's something I think that really helps with that a lot.
Yeah. It's really important because like you said, I like that with ourselves 24/7. It's a really good line. Yeah. Of you have everything inside. I really strongly believe that you know all your answers, you have everything in you, and you just have to go and access it. So sitting down and making that list really clearly and always having it out there is bringing it to the front. So you constantly have it.
Yeah.
Now, everything that you're doing, you say is comes from within, right? Like we're talking about everything getting from within. Now, I'm going to guess that you're doesn't say the same thing about if you want to make your relationship even better is look for times in the past where you did things that were good, right?
What do you mean? Meaning,
let's say
expand on that.
I'm looking to make my relationship better. So I'm going to look for times and moments and places where the relationship was really good and see what was happening, what were the qualities that were coming out then, and how can I go and bring them to make my relationship better?
Yeah. Well, I would even say, ask yourself what it is that you want for your relationship. So what, it's a similar thing, but you want to start with kind of like, what's the goal? What do I want to experience here? What do we want to? Ideally, you're talking about it as a unit. And you're saying, what do we want for our relationship? And then we go back to ourselves, right? And we each take personal responsibility to create that. But I could do that on my own too. I don't even need to do this with my partner. I can say, and that's the magic of it. That's what's so powerful about it. I can say, you know what? This is what I want for my relationship. Now, what am I going to do to create that? So let's say I want more, we want to spend more quality time together. Okay, well, I'm going to initiate that, right? I'm going to say, I'm going to, make it happen. I'm going to make the date or make the request or whatever it is. But so, I would say start with what you want and then go back and say, okay, what am I going to do or what are we going to do to create that, to enrich our relationship?
Yeah, you first have to get very clear on what you want. Yeah, 100%. Or else, like, where you headed to.
Yeah, like anything, right? Like I tell people, like, you're planning a trip, right? You're gonna go. I don't know, where do you like to go? One place you like
everywhere, traveling everywhere.
Okay, so what? Okay, so you're going to travel to where?
Traveling in a month to Mexico.
Okay, so you're going to Mexico, right? So you know where you're going. You know what you want to experience, and then you plan for that, right? So it's the same thing. We just want to bring that into our everyday life. We could do this every day. We could do it in our relationships. We could do it at work. We could, really do it all the time. And we know how to do this because you know how to plan for a trip. Right. So we already have the tools and skills to do this. It's just about applying it in our personal life, which is possible.
Yeah, I would say that you have to know where you are right now and where you're headed to, because you're just going to get in the wrong place. Like if you're going to New York.
Right. You're going to go where the wind blows, right? Otherwise, I'm going here, so.
Yeah.
And then, wait, how did I get here? Do I want to be here? What am I doing here? Or like, I really don't want to be here. How in the world did I get here? Right. So we really want to take a step back and say, what do I want? Where do I want to go? That trips people up because sometimes they're like, I don't know. And then they get really nervous and anxious, but it's important. So that's why it's important to have, going back to the self-awareness and knowing ourselves, what's important to us, and that information will come out from there.
Yeah, and because it's so hard, I think that a lot of people don't take time to do that, which then, like you said, they get blown by the wind. And then like 7 years later, they're like, hey, why is my marriage looking like this? Well, if you don't do anything about it consciously, you're just going to go wherever the wind takes you. So
yeah, it's true, right? Things don't just happen, right? We make them happen. So we want to take that responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like the movies, right? I think that we get caught up in that. I call it the movie myth, right? Like we watch it or whatever, and it's just, it looks like things just happen, right? But I find that it really doesn't work that way. I find that we consciously, we make things happen. We create our experiences. And there's something really vulnerable and beautiful about that. To say to your partner, for example, I want you to ask me how I'm doing right now, right? To have that moment, and then your partner does that. I mean, it's incredibly powerful, right? As opposed to they just know how to, so because we've made ourselves vulnerable, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's just the way my brain works. It sounds sometimes. I wanted to ask you if you, on a personal level, how has being really conscious about your relationship affected your own relationship?
How has being conscious about my own relationship affected my relationship?
Meaning, like, were you always like that? Did it change at some point?
No, I think I was always like that. Maybe too. Like, it's just it's just who I am. I think it's just very conscious about things, and I'm conscious about, myself and what I need and what would be good, here. It's always looking at it that way, Yeah, I don't think that anything, I mean, I'll tell you, no, it's not true. When I my first serious relationship was not a good one, but I only knew that afterwards, right? And so because of that, I was so determined, because I was surprised that would be my experience, because I thought I was, I thought it was okay, like fine, like good in a relationship. I thought it was like a good partner. And so I was so determined to learn everything that I could about relationships. So that was interesting. That happened. I was in college, and then I was like, okay, things aren't as simple as I thought they would be. And so let me learn. And so that really opened up my eyes. And so that really, that also, like, besides from the choices that I made in my personal life, it also definitely impacted the choices I made in my professional life, right? Because I just so really wanted to understand relationships and how people work and how it works. And so that was really helpful. So that helped.
So you think that because you learned a lot beforehand, it helped you in your relationship?
Totally. I think so. Yeah. And because I wanted to, though. I think the same thing can happen, I'm sure, right, to people. And it doesn't mean that they learn or that they want to learn, and they could get into the same kind of cycle again and again, But I was like, no, I'm going to learn how to make this work. I want to learn how things work well, because I was determined. I was like, I'm going to be in a great and healthy relationship. And so that's what I want. And so, yeah, so I guess in a way, in a funny way, I'm grateful for that experience, because it really taught me a lot about what I don't want and what I do want. So it was a real treasure in terms of what I gained from that, even though it was really, really a difficult time, but definitely.
And now that you're out of it, it's easier to say that.
Totally. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like hits me. But I'm like, yeah, it's just like, what's happening? This isn't what I want. This isn't how things should be, So, but I had to learn it. I don't think we're taught. I don't think we can have models, role models in our life of great, healthy relationships. But I think that there's a lot out there that we don't know. Naturally, like, we're not socialized in that way. But there's so many resources out there that if we want to learn, we can. And obviously, people, professionals, mentors, whoever who can teach us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What was the biggest thing or one of the greatest things that you learned while you were doing your research on how to have a better marriage?
Oh, the first thing I learned, I took my course in family therapy. It was in the first, I guess I was majoring in psychology already, but it was kind of like the first, I guess, elective that we took, right? Because there's core classes. And then I remember our professor said, people aren't together because they have the same personalities, right? And so that really hit me, because I think that before then, we generally we're dating people let's say we share the same interests or we're similar, right? So I was like, oh, it needs to go deeper than that. And that really helped me to understand that going back to the qualities and the values, it's like, okay, so if it's not that, it's not personalities, if that's going to make a good marriage or a good relationship, then what is it? And so, the research showed, having the core values, for example, is key, but that was a real eye opener for me. Again, I think just because coming from, that's what you think, that's all people get along because they have the same interests, they like the same things, or like doing the same types of things. But yeah, you don't need to. I would say my husband and I, it's funny. We don't even think sometimes the same things are funny. We laugh about that. That we have a different sense of humor, but that's not what makes, and we have fun together and we have fun with the, family. I just love that, he brings a certain energy and I appreciate though his sense of humor. I appreciate the fact that I don't have the same sense of humor even, we just appreciate who each other are, but not that we need to like the same things or even like the same show. There is overlap because otherwise, but it's that was interesting. That was really interesting to learn that and understand that, and then to not just to understand it, but to really embrace that idea and that concept and be like, oh, okay, it's not that. So let's look for what it really is.
Yeah.
Keeps people together.
I think it makes the relationship much more dynamic when there's differences. You have your core, but you express it this way and I express it this way, or like you said, you think is funny and I think this is funny, and it just changes the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really great, thank God, we have 4 kids, for them to see that, for them to see that we're the same in a lot of ways, and the really the important ways, the core ways, but we're different in other ways, and we appreciate each other. We have different, we disagree, we have different opinions, but the respect is there. So I think it's really nice that they get to see that.
Yeah, and I think it shows the kids that it's not only for marriage, it's also for friends, it's for coworkers, it's for everyone. We could each have our own opinion, think different things, but it doesn't make you better or worse because you think something else.
Yeah, I was actually talking to my one of my teens about it today, where she was expressing, there's a certain group of friends that she really likes, but they don't like the same music, right? So we had this same conversation about how that's okay. You can have different tastes in music, but who are they as people? Do you appreciate who they are? Do you, do you respect them? Do you like them? Do you want to be around them. That's what's important. So kind of, just kind of planting the seeds now, learning from what I learned. Just
well, they're really good role models.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so for our final question, the question that I ask everyone is, how would you define an extraordinary relationship without using these three words? Love, connection, and self-aware.
I think it comes back to respect and appreciation, right? Having that respect for who they are as a person, making room for each other, meaning making space, that there's space here for the both of us to coexist together, that a relationship is really, it's together, it's two individuals who are incredible, right? Meaning already in their own right, who come together to create something even greater together that wouldn't be possible, each, as individuals. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like this concept of you're
Leading.
Completing me. You have your compromise thing. My pet peeve is that you're completing me.
Okay.
I believe that we come in complete, like, as
right. That's the thing. You're not completing
people.
Me. Yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, you get it. And meaning, I know you get what I'm saying. And then, but it's that, and then creating something with that, even greater together, which is, to me, that's what it's about.
Yeah, exactly. I think that describes it really well, because like you said, we're each our own, and we each create incredible things individually, and then together there's something created even separate, like even better. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. This was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. This was so much fun.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day.